All right, welcome back to Top 5 Vinyl, where we show love to vinyl owners. Today I'm here with Ray West. How you doing, sir?
How are you, sir?
Not
Peace.
too bad, not too bad. Before we get started, I want everybody to subscribe, like the channel, tell your cool friends, all that cool YouTube stuff you guys got to do. With that being said, Ray, where can the people find you? Do you have a website or anything like that going on?
Sure, you could find my records at Fat Beats or at redapples45.com. Or we have a band camp, Red Apples 45 at Bandcamp to
Nice,
have there's some stuff on there that's not available elsewhere. Or you could catch me on IG at Ray West 45.
nice. Okay, cool, cool. Uh,
Thank you.
of course. And with that being said, music lover?
For sure.
Because I see a bunch of stuff behind you.
Absolutely. Yeah, music's been the passion my whole life. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Particularly records and music ever since I was a little kid.
Nice. Now, did you grow up
Yeah,
in a household with a record player?
I did. I grew up in a household with a record player, and my mother played the piano.
Mm,
My grandfather played the accordion.
mm,
My father played the guitar and dabbled with the drums. Um, my sister wrote poetry. So I came from a very artistic house. My mother was always playing the piano
mm.
in the house.
So, who would you say was like the primary listener of the vinyl records in the house growing up?
I think it was more my mother, if I remember. Like my mother was a stay-at-home mom, and she would be playing like 80s music when I was a kid, Michael
Mm,
Jackson,
mm, mm,
Billy Joel, the
mm,
Beatles, stuff like that. And then I had records from a very early age. My parents bought me Star Wars records, even
mm,
like going back to when I was a kid. So
mm,
I've always had records sort of as like a form of entertainment,
mhm,
beyond just listening to music. Even as a child, I was listening to like adventure records
mm.
and then it grew into like my parents' collection
That's cool.
until I heard Roxanne from UTFO, and then it
Mm.
was over, bro.
Ah,
You
right,
know what I
right.
mean?
That beat.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
right. It was
Okay,
over.
okay. Now, do you remember the first vinyl record that you ever bought?
I do. I still have it. It's Friends from Houdini on
Mm.
45.
Okay.
That was my very first record that I dragged my parents
Hmm.
to like the record store in my neighborhood and got. And I can remember too, like next was Fat Boys and
Mm,
went into like Houdini and the Biz and
hmm.
all that stuff was happening at that time. So,
All the
but
legends.
my very first record was Houdini Friends on 45.
Mm, okay. And
Yeah.
throughout like your vinyl collecting career, did you ever have like a favorite vinyl store?
Yes. Um, Very easily, I could say my favorite store of all time was on City Island in the Bronx.
Mm,
It was a huge record store that had a rolling around ladder, wooden ladder, because
mm,
everything was really high, like a library.
mm,
And there was an older guy named Roger who owned the store with a big beard, and he looked like Santa Claus. And he had such a great collection of jazz. It wasn't like a hip hop store where you were going to get the latest 12-inch or something, but it was just like the knowledge in there was amazing.
mm,
The customers were amazing. You could hang out in there all day. It was
mm,
quiet. It was just the greatest place.
mm.
Other than that, though, I'd have to mention Bruckner Records on Bruckner Boulevard. When I was a kid, that's where I was getting all my tapes and cassettes and Critical Beatdown and
Huh.
you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Uh, Passing that from school. So that was like my way home record store as a kid.
Okay.
But as an adult, a real collector, the City Island record store by far was
Mm.
the a spiritual place.
Yeah, sounds like an experience.
It was a great place.
Mm, okay. And
Yeah.
in a single trip to any record store, do you remember the most amount of vinyl that you walked out with?
I think it was honestly not even to be cliche. It was the City Island record store,
Mm,
and it was a I remember the day. Um, it's an interesting story. But yeah, I never was one to buy expensive records.
Hmm.
Like I've spent money on records here and there, but that day I spent a little bit of money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, with that being said, before I even ask you about your five, have you seen any of your top five perform live before?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yes.
Okay. When we get there, you'll have to break it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
All right, cool. All right.
No problem.
Yeah, man. So this is top five vinyl.
Right.
Can you show me your number five?
Okay. So my number five, this is a repress, but I have the original somewhere, right? I have this on tape, cassette,
Mm.
CD, and it's Curious's first
Mm.
album,
I love
right?
the single. I'm curious.
Oh man, I mean this record, and this is a repress by the brothers at 90s Tapes,
Hmm.
which they did such a stellar job of the pressing, of the repress, of the notes, and it's a record that deserves so much because for me growing up as a Bobito person, we always listened to Bobito, and George was always in the background freestyling. And when he finally came out with his record around this time, bro, this was the first time you really heard the beat nuts
Mm.
ever, right?
Mm.
Making beats. At least for me, this and Pete Nice's album
Mm.
uh, was like the first time we ever heard the beat nuts. And this record, I mean, as I got older, I realized how musical it was in a time where everything was very competitive.
Hmm.
You know, at this era
Hmm.
of music, of hip hop, George just is a musician, and this shows. It's like a jazz record, man. It's
Hmm.
lighthearted.
Hmm.
It's a record I've listened to since it came out my whole life. At some point, it comes back, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
So I always consider this one of my top rap records of all time.
Hmm.
Yep.
So, okay.
Constipated Monkey by Curious.
Yep. Yep. That's
Classic,
awesome.
brother.
Yeah, I think I actually reached out to him to see if he can do one of these. He hadn't has not gotten back to me. I'm very curious to see what his five would be. So that's amazing that you have him in your five.
I'm pretty tight with George, so I could let him know.
Please do. That'd be awesome.
I, yeah,
Okay.
he's a great dude.
Okay.
Yeah,
That was your number five.
that was my number five. It's hard to even put these in order. It
I,
really was the most difficult challenge.
I
Not
know.
and I wanted to say I picked hip hop records that influenced me,
Hmm.
but that could easily have been jazz records
Mm.
or records in general. It would
Yeah.
take me like it take me like 2 years to get back to you on
Well,
which are
well,
the best ones.
well, it sounds like we may have a part two brewing.
Right. I'm totally with the jazz record. Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. That was your number five. Let's take a look at your number four.
Sure. So this record, as a Bronx kid, right?
Mm.
Showing a
Mm.
full scale EP,
Mm.
right? When this came out, I remember walking into Fat Beats, and I haven't heard from Showing A in a while at this point musically,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw it on the new counter, and I was like, "Oh man, this looks crazy to me," and I played this record to death. Like
Mm.
me and my friends listened to this back when this came out so much, and I
Mm-hmm.
just felt like Party Artie on here with D Flow, and there was a Pun KRS AG song. I mean, there was just so much to this. It was packed so tight,
Mm-hmm.
and it was such a breath of fresh air as like Bronx music. Like
Mm-hmm.
this epitomized where I was from, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm.
So no promotion for this record. This thing hit us like a right hook out
Hmm.
here. Like, oh,
Nice.
they're back?
Mm.
And I know they later made a full length out of it and stuff, but to me, the full scale EP, I remember the day I picked this record up
Mm.
off the rack. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Mm.
So
Mm.
classic,
That's
bro.
that's a great album. Okay.
It really is, man.
Okay. So how was your
I
number
love that.
Yep. That was
That's
your number
number four.
four.
Again,
Yep.
it's very hard, man.
Now, before we get into your number three, let me ask you this question.
Yeah,
If you had to guess, how many vinyl albums do you have in your possession?
man, I have no idea. It's like in this house, there's probably, the white record cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
Like I probably have like 50 of those in this
Mm,
house,
mm,
plus all the IKEA shelves.
mm.
In my mother's house, there's a whole bunch of records there, so, and I got rid of a ton of records too.
Mm,
I don't know how to gauge how many, but you know, every rap record almost since what I'm saying. There's
mm,
nothing that got by me, and then
mm,
the jazz collection is extensive. The rock
mm,
collection is extensive. I mean, how many records are in a crate? I don't know.
mm, mm.
Thousands, man. You know what I'm saying?
I get
It's
it.
a
I get it.
problem, bro.
No,
It's a
it's
problem.
a beautiful problem. I get it.
It's a problem.
I get it.
Yes.
All right. So that was your number four.
Right.
Let's go ahead and take a look at your number three.
So three is as a producer, and this record, the Lord Quaz, Madlib, Quasimodo, the Unseen, right?
Mm,
This is some SP 1200, amazing work.
mm,
It sounded like work Madlib maybe never, like he was truly doing for himself.
mm,
He created the character of Quasimodo and did the raps with the voice, and just the beats and the way he did it and the content is such a, I don't know, man. This record, me and my boy Raheem Abdul Jabbar, one of my good friends and like collectors, um, we listened to this record together probably 50, 60
mm.
times in our
Yeah.
lives. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like in the crib, in the car, and just analyzing the production and the freedom that this record came with.
Mm,
Like, to me, it's one of my all-time like inspiration records.
mm,
To be
mm,
yourself.
mm.
Yeah.
Is there any artwork in the back of that? Because I like the okay. Okay.
And this has been repressed a bunch of times. This is
Mm-hmm.
the original. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? And he had two other albums under the Quasimodo moniker. But this goes back to when Stone's Throw was kind of first starting. They got their telephone number on here. You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
this is a this is a classic, man. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think they realize, well, I can't speak for them, but I don't know if they were banking on it being as much as a classic as it was to us when they put it out. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
It's an odd record to some degree because of the character, the voice character,
Mm,
and the raps not being so straightforward. It's very dusty,
mm,
but
mm,
it's an introspective record for sure. And the playfulness of it is genius because there's a lot of stuff in here that is conscious and
mm,
stories and almost like gangstar hood stories to watch your back too is in here,
mm,
but it's done under almost a comic book
mm,
type of feel. You know what
mm,
I mean?
mm,
So it's got something that is so unique. I feel like it's one of one, man.
mm. Okay,
Yeah,
that's dope.
word.
Okay, nice. Okay, so that was your number three. Let's take a look at your number two.
All right, so this record again, Dr. Octagon,
Hmm.
right? This is Cool Keith,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, I bought this record. Again, there was a store in the Lower East Side called Liquid Sky
Mm.
in the 90s. And it was like a rave clothing store.
Okay.
And we used to go there to buy fly pieces. and incorporate it into our shit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And they had a record store down a spiral staircase in
Mm.
the clothing store that was a hardcore techno breakbeat
Mm.
house-ish record store.
Mm.
We would go there just to look while we were buying some clothes. And I found this record. I had never heard of Dr. Octagon before. This was brand new at the time. It was like, this is an import. I didn't know it was Kool Keith. I bought it just on the strength of how it looked.
Mm-hmm.
When I got home and listened to it, I'm like, man, this is the craziest record. This sounds like Kool Keith.
Mm.
And at this time, there was no real web internet,
Right.
like that wasn't popping like that. It was still, sure, the internet existed,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't like that yet.
Right. Right.
And Dan the Automator, Qbert, Cutmaster Kurt, Kool Keith, all collaborating on a record that changed Kool Keith's trajectory once again.
Mm-hmm.
And this record became like the dark side of the moon of hip hop or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I love this OG pressing and the weirdness of it, but I also wanted to share just like the Get Down, how those dudes make, like they repress this in an octagon box.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? With a poster, book, all this amazing art and some Prince Paul remixes on it. I mean,
Wow.
this thing is like honorable mention, at least for this packaging, like for a collector. This is an iconic, game-changing album. Like, Kool Keith after this record was like on tour with the Chili Peppers or some shit. You know what I'm saying? It changed from, he would be the only rap artist on like the Warped Tour or like, these, because of this record. It was such a, there's some kid in college right now tripping on acid listening to Dr. Octagon. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
It's one of those joints. You know what I mean?
That's funny.
Yeah, right. It's like it became a super cult classic. To me anyway.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. All right, man. And for the grand finale, what do we have for number one?
The grand finale of records that, I don't know, man, it was hard pick, but I got to go with the Villain. Again, Curious on here. In the beginning, not realizing this is Sev Love X, and just following Fondulum, which was Bobbito's label at the time. So anything Fondulum came out with, we were buying. And I remember getting the 12-inch first for Greenbacks. And when this album dropped, like with the hand style, it just seemed so homegrown. And it had all the names on it that mattered to me from my childhood, like Bobbito. I saw Sub Rock, Curious is on it, Doom. I didn't know that Doom was X at this point till like a week later. And I was just like, to me, I've listened to this record so much. And also his freedom of, I just want to do, I'm doing this my own way. You know what I mean? Was a big deal to me, And to see that record get repressed 100 times, like from the time we got it, out of the store when they only made 1,000 or whatever.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, this thing is still streaming on Spotify today. And my son got a poster of him in his room. It's not many artists have that sort of impact,
Yeah.
So, Doomsday, like these aren't my favorite records either to some degree, like as far as, or what I think are the best. Because I would say like Illmatic, it might be the best rap album, you know what I mean? But maybe that vinyl per se didn't affect me as much as these vinyls, but the music aside,
I got you. That makes sense.
Right.
Because they mean something.
It means something.
Right.
I have
Right.
I have one honorable mention,
Okay.
and it's this because I can't categorize this man's music and how much it's a big deal to me. But like
Mm-hmm.
the Slumville original Dilla stuff,
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to Welcome to Detroit Dilla stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those records. Um, I again showing the box set of the 45s
Mm-hmm.
of Fantastic. They're those records are something that I've listened to a tremendous amount. Like
Mm-hmm.
I had to buy, this is my old copy, but I've had to buy other copies just because they've been late, not cared for properly in my
Right.
youth. And again, Slumville wasn't trying to dazzle you with Big L lyrics,
Mm-hmm.
right? They were coming with, they're not top tier rappers, of course they are, but their rhythmic, their cadence, the way they bounce, their whole Detroit sound. For me, when I was young, rolling around in my car with that shit on, I felt like I knew about stuff no one knew about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that led me down the Dilla path where I was dabbling with Dilla a little bit at that time, the Slumville. And then when Welcome to Detroit came out, that record made me feel like, okay, this guy's the greatest of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Way before Donuts and all that stuff, I was kind of locked in. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And to see that turn into that too is pretty special to me also. Like to
Yeah.
see I was trying not to be so corny and have Mad Lib, Dilla, Doom, Nad Billing,
It's year
but
5.
that was a big part for me, man.
Yeah.
That I was never into the battle rap too much or
Mm-hmm.
the we're gonna overthrow the government rap. Like
Mm-hmm.
no disrespect to any corner or pocket.
Mm-hmm.
I just like the music, the way the music is. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
George's album is musical. Like they're coming at it a little less confrontational and more about the overall thing,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think like Dilla is the epitome of, even if it's the most gangster stuff, he's still making it like a girl could like this. And
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm saying? It's
Mm-hmm.
still,
Mm-hmm.
it transcends what we normally do,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I agree
I could
100%.
have had 100 honorable mentions, but you know what I
That'll
mean?
be for part 2.
All right. I would love that, man.
Yeah, man. So
I
Ray, this has
appreciate
been
it, brother.
fun. Of course, man. This has been fun, and I appreciate your time.
Likewise. Thank you for caring about it, man.
Oh, of course.
Appreciate you and
Oh
what you're
yeah.
doing for the collectors and, getting people to share their thoughts about what they feel. I think that as we get older too, it's real important, man. You know what I mean? Because
Definitely.
can't take our whole culture for granted,
Right, right.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I appreciate it, brother. Thank
All right,
you.
cool. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, man. Likewise.
All right, we'll talk soon.
Peace.
All right, man. Peace.